Hi everybody, welcome to Quarantine Cooking, episode Pita Bread. So this takes a little planning ahead to make the perfect pita loaf. The night before, you have to eju, which is make your dough. I used to help my grandma eju either early in the morning or the night before, and it's just one of my favorite memories, and she'd wrap all the dough in clean bed sheets. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. The first step for our homemade pita bread will be combining the wet ingredients and activating our yeast. So we have a cup and a half of water, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 14 grams or a half ounce of dry active yeast. So first combine your dry active yeast and your sugar and gently whisk. Then with just warm water, about 103 degrees, you can add it to your yeast and sugar and just give it a little whisk just to make sure the sugar is a little bit dissolved. And adding sugar to this recipe really helps get that beautiful pita pocket because yeast feeds off of sugar, and you'll see that in its process. We're going to let this sit for about 10 to 15 minutes just till we see a nice yeasty foam, and then we'll move on to combining it with our dry ingredients.
تحكي عني يا حبيبي لنبعة المي ولما بيدور السهر تحت نادي المسا بيحكوا عنك يا حبيبي وأنا بنت ساعة بيحكوا عنك يا حبيبي وأنا بنت ساعة.
So you can see our yeast is nice and active and it has created a beautiful froth on top. It's important to do this for a couple reasons. One, because let's say you've had your yeast for a really long time and you're not sure how good it is anymore. This tells you that it's going to do what we want, which create the actual pocket in our pita. And then 2, it just gives time for the sugar to dissolve into our liquid and evenly distribute into the rest of the dough. So I have 3.5 cups of bread flour here, and then another one on the side for rolling out the dough. In our wet ingredients, I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of olive oil, and just give that a little whisk. And then into the flour, I'm putting 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. Make sure that it's kosher. If you do sea salt, I recommend using about 1.25 teaspoons of sea salt. And whisk all around, and then we're going to be adding our liquid ingredients right into the well of our flour. And just start either with a wooden spoon or a spatula, start incorporating the flour into the liquid. And once there is some cohesion and you can see that in fact this is going to be dough, you can get in there with your hands and start kneading. Again, if you need to add a little flour, that's why you have that cup on the side. Just knead a couple times, getting all the flour that's on the edges of your bowl to join the party. And then scoot this out of the way, and then choose a clean work surface and sprinkle some flour and get ready for your arm workout. So we're going to knead this for about 2 minutes. flour your hands a little bit, light dusting. So we have a nice, soft, even dough ball, and we're gonna just let this sit at room temperature, but covered with a clean towel, or you can also just use your bowl that we mixed in and just turn it right over. And we're gonna let this sit for 10 minutes and then knead for another 2 minutes. So the dough sat for 10 minutes just to relax the gluten a little bit. So you can see it's gotten a lot softer now. And we're just gonna, again, knead it for 2 minutes, adding a little more flour if needed. And kneading the dough before we let it rise helps develop the gluten and give that delicious chew that we all want in a perfect loaf of pita. So we have a nice smooth dough ball that's just slightly tacky but doesn't really stick to your fingers or your work surface when pressed down. And then we're just gonna put this either in an oiled Ziploc bag, or you can put it back in your bowl if you clean it out with a little drizzle of olive oil, and cover it up with plastic overnight. And then we'll get to it tomorrow to roll out our pita. Our dough has risen in the fridge overnight, and I let it come to room temperature for about 30 minutes or an hour, depending on how warm your kitchen is. And now we're just going to be portioning it out into roughly the size of, you can do anywhere from a walnut to an orange, depending on if you want really big loaves or small loaves or somewhere in between, which is what we're going to be doing. So my Ziploc was coated with a little bit of oil, so it came out nice. And we're just gonna do a nice thin coating of flour before we cut this to size. And then just have a clean towel to cover the dough balls with to let them rise one more time before we start rolling and baking. Again, I think I've said it on 3 different episodes now, but bench scrapers, best friend for cleaning up after pastry and for portioning pastry or any kind of dough. So I like to kind of form, long snake-like dough, and we're doing about the size of a mandarin. So just like that, nice coating of flour. So there we have all our dough balls. It's okay if you have a little variation of size. It's, some people are gonna want more bread, some people are gonna want less. And it's always good to have a little bread loaf for your tester. Chef always gets to try it first. And just make sure each of your dough balls has a nice coating of flour. And they're gonna need about 4 inches of rising room. So you can lay them all out on maybe your kitchen counter if you don't need the work surface for creating the rest of your mezza like I do. Or go ahead and use a couple baking sheets and put them in a nice warmer place in your house. And we're gonna let this rise for about a half an hour, and we'll check on them, and we want them roughly doubled in size. So I'll set these up, lay them down for a nap, and we'll check on them in half an hour. So our pita dough rose for 30 minutes, and now I'm just starting to roll out our loaves. You can see they're all in a row, doubled in size. Our oven is very hot at 550 degrees. And after it preheated, I just put my baking pan that I'm gonna use in there and let it heat up for about 15 minutes, which I recommend. And you can use a turned over cast iron skillet or a pizza stone if you have it. Those are really great at retaining heat, but I'm just using a cheapo, a metal baking sheet, so that works well too. And because the oven is so hot, I'm using a pizza peel to slide this right in there. My uncle made this, so it's nice bringing all elements of our family into our cooking experience. I find it helpful to just have a little bit of extra flour on the side to dust your surface, dust your rolling pin. And we're looking for about an 1/8 to a 1/4 inch thickness per loaf, and cooking them each 2 minutes one side, and then if you're brave, you can reach in there and flip it, but if you want to keep all your arm hair, maybe use a spatula. That works well too. And 2 minutes on the other side, just till you start seeing little kisses of golden brown. And you know what? You end up overcooking some of your loaves. Congratulations, you made pita chips, so no problem. So this is the poofed pita that we're looking for, and then you can just put these layered in a clean dish towel to keep them moist and hot, because nobody can resist fresh, hot pita. Fresh hot pita ready to enjoy right now, or you can let it come to room temperature and just put it in a Ziploc, and it'll be good in the freezer for about a month. Ready to enjoy, maybe with some homemade hummus or baba ganoush. Thanks for coming to the pita party.
I took a look in